Well, good morning. I'd like to welcome you, obviously, to the Salem Chamber. Thank all of you for your interest. Certainly want to recognize Dan Johnson, who is recording our program today, and our viewers online. Jameson, thank you so much for getting our program and set up, working in partnership with our advocacy leadership team. My name is Tom Hoffert, and I have the pleasure of serving as CEO of this organization. And today we're going to bring forward 4 topics for your viewing pleasure, and certainly want to get into some dialogue and Q&A from all of you in the audience. We have a very dynamic program, a few more topics than we normally take on. We usually take on 1 or 2, but we're going to dive into a number of those today. And you have undoubtedly probably seen the announcement that our wonderful DA is going to be wrapping up a tremendous career of public service. And as she mentioned to me this morning, her work is far from done. So that is not an immediate transition, but we are going to kick off our program by introducing District Attorney for Marion County, Paige Clarkson. And she's going to give us an update on the criminal process and probably a little bit more even than that.
Sure. We can talk about anything you want. Hi, I'm Paige Clarkson, the DA of Marion County. He's referencing the fact that my chief deputy is going to be running in the next term for district attorney. So I am going to retire, but my term runs till the end of 26. This is a really long goodbye. So we're going to hang out for a long time. I will add something about that, though, that I think is just a fun fact so that everyone kind of understands why district attorneys kind of do what we do when we do it. We're actually a state position, not a county position. So if I was to run again and leave midterm, the governor appoints my successor. And in certain climates, and when you're looking at certain sort of how the state works and how everything goes, that isn't super palatable to me as a district attorney. If I was to run and decide I wanted to leave in 2 years, my youngest child is going to graduate. I have 4 kids going to graduate from high school this next year. So personally and professionally, I've been at this for more than a quarter of a century. It's the right time for me. But that doesn't really matter, because what really has to happen is it has to be the right time for my office. If I was to run again, I know I have to put in 4 more years, and personally probably just don't have it. So I need to make a good decision. And we were talking up here earlier, just sort of as a group. I think you all know this as business leaders in your community. When you are a leader, whether it is of a business, whether it is of an office in government, we are planting trees that we necessarily will not feel the shade of. And that is, I think, the mark of good leadership of a city, of a business, and of our government services that are supposed to be working on behalf of the rest of us. So I love this job, and I have a privilege of serving really an amazing community and doing some amazing work. Not leaving because I don't like it. I'm leaving because I love it. And I have to make that decision to do so that my office can continue with the right people and the right leadership. And so plug for Brendan Murphy, who is my chief deputy, and he's gonna run in the next election. And you all probably know him. If you don't, you will love him, and I'm very proud to work alongside of him. So we're going to be in good hands with good law enforcement leadership going forward, and I'm super proud of that. What I'm here to talk about today, though, is my actual day job, and one I intend to keep for another year plus. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Lena Prine, who you all know, she works in my office now. I managed to steal her after a number of years of trying to accomplish that task. She put together a really great handout, and if you don't have it, we work together to kind of just give you a little information about how the criminal justice system works, what it looks like on the inside. I feel like the sheriff and I come and we talk to you folks, or we talk to groups like you, and we're constantly talking about the challenges of working in law enforcement today and what that looks like. And again, I've been doing this for a really long time, and the landscape has changed. We have less resources, and we need to do more. And the challenges we are dealing with are just frankly more serious. And I wanted you to kind of have a look of like, what does it look like to actually get a case through the system? Starts at the very top with, illegal contact, which really means the sheriff should have started this conversation. But he does his work, and all of the police agencies around our county do their work, and then those cases come to me. And then we have to work through all of the challenges with those cases. And I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about them because I know you know what these are. But we do have a lot of challenges in the criminal justice system, whether that be a shortage of public defense. We're doing a lot better in Marion County than we were a year ago managing that. We're down to under 300 cases, I think, now that are unrepresented, but that's a big deal. That means when you call the police and you report a burglary, it's possible that person is not going to get a lawyer, which means that case is going to sit for the next 3 months, 6 months, a year until we can get them court appointed at counsel. That's not good service. That's not good immediate interaction. That's not good accountability in our community, but it is something that we at this end of the criminal justice system don't have control over. So we're managing that. We're working with our courts to fix that, but it's a challenge that we work with. We have obviously just resource challenges. I have about 30 lawyers that work in our office. The average number of cases that they carry at any one time is over 100 cases, about 120. That's average. Some of my lawyers carry more than that. Some of them carry less than that. It depends on the type of case. You can imagine if you have a caseload full of misdemeanors and you're a young lawyer, we're going to work the hell out of you. But if you are a really experienced lawyer and most of your cases are child sex abuse, probably going to have less than 100 cases doing that. Those are really complex, difficult cases. But in general, we have lawyers working really hard all the time to respond to these. And we also have a lot of really serious crime in Marion County. You guys have heard that song here. The sheriff and I, Chief Womack and the other chiefs around Marion County, we meet regularly to try to figure out how to manage that. The sheriff might even talk about a little bit more of those collaborations that we're working on specifically to target what we call kind of hot people, hot places. Trying to use data to respond to particular types of crime and trying to give our law enforcement friends people in my office that they can directly contact with to manage some of those cases. So there is a lot of issues that we have responding appropriately, but we work really hard together, and we work really hard in general to respond to the most serious offenses, all the way down to some of those livability crimes that you are seeing out there. I don't like to say those aren't a big deal, or that they're minimal crimes, or even the term livability crime is not my favorite. It's a big deal because the small things add up to big things. And so we need to be responding to those. And so I'm just sharing with you some of our challenges in doing that. One of the things I was asked to kind of address is, what do you do as business owners or people downtown when you see crime and you see things happening? I think the fact that we see so much of it today, and kind of in our downtown core specifically, or out in Northeast Salem, the fact that we see so much of it tends to, it's like that frog in the water, right? When you put the frog in the cold water and you start to boil it, we don't notice it as much. I think we're getting a little complacent and a little apathetic, and I'm using the royal we, I'm not saying any one of you feel that way. But my message to you today is continue to call, continue to report, continue to say what you're seeing. If you see something, say something. Was that something that we were told 25 years ago in the airports? If you see it, you should report it. Make the phone call. That doesn't mean that you're going to see a Salem officer on the street in the next 10 minutes. It doesn't mean that you're going to see a deputy responding to that immediately out in Northeast Salem. There is a prioritization of calls that happen from the dispatch center all the way to the patrol officer on the street that has to make decisions. But if you don't call, we don't know what's happening. And those numbers are not reported. And then the data doesn't reflect the need. And then city councils and our board of commissioners at the county level, they don't understand what's happening out there without the numbers and without the data. And then I can't make an argument that there's more cases. And the sheriff can't make an argument that he needs more public safety professionals on the road. Those calls matter. And so I know it can be discouraging to place a phone call and just have dispatch say, okay, if I have somebody, I'll send it, or Nobody's going to be able to respond to that. But thank you for your information. That information is recorded. It counts. The numbers matter. And then we are able to make arguments that we need help, right? We need more resources. We need more lawyers that can actually address those livability issues. We need more patrol officers on the street. Otherwise, those resources go elsewhere. And you see it everywhere from the state level all the way down to local. There's a lot of competition. But I will tell you, and I think the sheriff will echo me, there is nothing more important than public safety. If people don't feel safe, you know this. They can't shop in your stores. They can't be out on the street. They can't go to the parks. They aren't going to move here and buy real estate. They aren't going to start businesses. And so it matters that people feel safe and that we can actually reflect a community that values that basic public safety. I will also say on behalf of probably the sheriff as well, he loves it when I talk for him. He's already looking.
You got 15 more minutes.
50,
keep going.
Yeah. I will also say that we are firmly of the belief, I feel like we do this enough together that I can say this. We are firmly of the belief that doing nothing is not compassionate. Accountability is compassion. And I've said it in this group before, but I'll say it again. For any of us that are parents, you understand that holding your children accountable is the way you show them that you love them, right? And as a community, as a state, I think we sort of separated there for a while, compassion and accountability. And we really believe those two things are the same. They're synonymous. And so when you call and you report that you see somebody suffering out there, that may not need a public safety level response. It may get a response from some of these other collaborations we're working with. That's still compassionate. It's not that you don't care when you call, you're calling to care. And we care about those numbers, and we want to see those numbers, and we want our community to reflect those public safety values that we have. I'll leave it at that because I'm looking at the time and I know I've got talkers down the row from me here. It's not my first rodeo with this crowd. So I will leave it at that. If there's questions, I'm happy to take them whenever you want to, but I will pass it on to my esteemed colleague that I'd love to talk with every opportunity I get.
Do you want me to just roll right from there,
Yeah.
Tom, or you want to do something special?
Sheriff.
Everyone know the sheriff?
Sheriff Nick Hunter.
I feel like I have to do it this way now. So yes, my name is Nick Hunter. I am the Marion County Sheriff. I am a former classmate and friend of the Business of the Year, Ryan Hazelbaker. So I guess we'll get that one out there. Yes, you all just heard Paige is divorcing me. There's something to be said, and I've had this question come to me a lot lately. Maybe you saw that Brendan Murphy, yes, I've endorsed Brendan Murphy. And all of a sudden I started to get hammered because they thought there was some sort of trouble between myself and the DA. Yes, that there was this unknown thing that was going on. Let me clear that up. There's no unknown thing that is going on. This is my DA until she divorces me and she officially leaves me. But succession planning is something that we have to do, and we have to look at how we do that. And it's a little bit more difficult these days in the sort of criminal justice and public safety. I feel like 15 years ago, you could sort of look down the list and say, there's your next this, there's your next that. And we are having to put thought into that, a lot more development, what that looks like. But I'm happy to say I think Brendan Murphy, and I'll give you that plug too. Brendan Murphy is an extremely charismatic, smart, intelligent, very well-spoken individual that cares about this community and cares about the priorities in this community. So I do not want to divorce my DA, and I will accept that only when I have to. But we will figure out how to continue to serve this community in the way that you all need to be addressed and served. It's kind of easy following Paige, so I don't ever prepare notes. I'm sorry, I don't have a document, but I also don't have Alina. So
it's the difference, by the way. Yeah.
But nonetheless, following Paige, I could tighten things down, and it makes sense, and there's things to talk about. So when we talk, and Jameson did give me some points here that he wanted to hit. one of the best things that is right now going on in law enforcement specifically is hiring is actually finally improving. So my enforcement division, I am very happy to say I finally have a waiting list. So we have currently a person in every available position. What that doesn't exactly answer is that right now we are looking at about a 25% pass rate. And 25% means that when you come in the door, you go through an interview, we say, yes, we would like to explore this relationship further. We have about a 25% pass rate of getting from that point all the way through background, the psychological evaluation, into field training, and then actually getting to the point that you would be a full-time employee working on your own with us. And so those numbers are the ones that we're always struggling with, trying to figure out why is that. Generationally, we are just different. We're seeing different folks. But what I've seen, and especially in the last kind of 18 months, 24 months, we're seeing some more folks coming back into law enforcement that remind me of me in the early 2000s. Now, some of you that know me, you can say that's a good thing or a bad thing, and I'm open to the opinion. But we're finding those folks that not only want to come out, and Paige says it well when we talk about compassion and accountability. Those are synonyms, not antonyms. They have to go together to make things successful. But I also need folks that absolutely have a drive to go serve their communities. And that drive that I'm looking for is that I want them to go dig things up in their communities. I want them to be that person that is restless. I want them to be that person that actually says, do you know when I want to work? I want to work on graveyard shift. I want to work from midnight to 6 a.m. And I don't want folks that come into this job that say, it gets dark and you expect me to go outside and work when it gets dark. So I need those folks that want to go drive things, because we're looking at two different things. And I'll say it this way. So we continue to look at the word crisis, and the word crisis has two different meanings when you look at crisis. So one of the ways we look at that is our mental health crises that's going on right now. And we were able to secure grant funding that got us back to actually having a Marion County crisis response team again. So although I want you to get excited, I don't want you to get too excited, because we have a singular team where we used to have 4. The call load and the capacity still calls for probably more than 4 of those teams. But we do finally have a team back out there. And where this became tough for me is this used to be a collaborative relationship between us, the city of Salem, and Woodburn. And so you had somebody available in all of those jurisdictions. Now it's mine. And it's only my person that's out there. But what I won't do is limit them to Marion County. So where crisis is occurring, crisis response will go to, but understand that the need greatly outweighs the resource that is currently there. But it does give us that kind of connective piece once again to keep our folks working on where we want them to work on, while being able to say, this is a person in crisis that needs different services, and now we can give something specific into those services. And especially when we have those acute situations, being able to get that qualified mental health person immediately on scene. And this is where this model gets lost when we try and sell this non-law enforcement response model. It's a great concept that fails, and it's failing in Eugene. So don't let anyone tell you anything differently. But this model, I cannot send QMHPs into a highly volatile, dangerous situation. And those are the folks that we need to help the most. And so we have to stay on focus and on task of what we're trying to accomplish. On the other side of that, where we're seeing great success is, so we were able to, on the lead program side, we now have a lead outreach team. And it's the other side of crisis, and that's your SUD side of crisis. Now, I want to say those two are separate, but you all know that those two are not separate, and mental health and SUD go hand in hand. The question is, which one is worse on the day, and which one is driving the current crises that the person is experiencing? The beauty of this outreach team now, and this is Deputy Joshua Tribby, it's one of the lead navigators, we added a QMHP to that team. So there's 3 of them, and they are not call responsive at all. they are actually going out and seeking those folks that need help. And just like when you raise your children, you realize just because you go contact them and say, hey, I've got help for you, does not mean that they say, absolutely, where do I sign up and where do I go now? But because they're able to do this without being call responsive, they're able to make those more frequent contacts on a daily basis. They're able to follow up with these folks. And that's what we're really starting to see. This team is about 3 to 4 months in right now, and they are now going back into areas where people are specifically looking for them. Behavioral change is only going to occur when you want to, meaning you have to decide you want to change. I can't tell you to change. But if we have these continued contacts, we have people now that are once standing behind a tree, now all of a sudden coming out and waiting for Josh and the resources to get there, and they do want to get there. So we're seeing our numbers going up, and that's another resource that I don't limit to Marion County. They can go where the need exists because frankly, I don't limit them to Marion County. There is a need right across the river, and you all know it exists in Wallace Marine Park and what Wallace Marine Park has come. So it doesn't matter where that need is. That's where I want them. And they're working collaboratively with the Salem teams and doing those type of things. So in crisis response, that's where we're at. Paige kind of started to allude to where if we talk about the GVPA or gun violence, what are we doing with that? I'm hesitant in this conversation, and I think Paige would agree. We've both been a bit hesitant because we don't want to sit here and say something that creates an expectation, and then in 2 weeks from now, you all see me somewhere and you say, how's that going? How's that going, and what have you done? We want to produce results. That's what we want to do. And we are figuring out right now very systematically how to do that. And what I mean is we're going to the total opposite of the crisis teams. And this is a new concept. And I'll just give you the acronym because we can go from there. So the acronym is HEAT. And HEAT is High Enforcement Action Team. Total opposite of crisis. What we're looking for is specifically those bad actors in our communities that are controlling crime. Those shot callers, those folks that are sitting at the high level of, and I don't want to call it organized crime because I don't know if it exactly fits that definition, but to give those folks the attention that they deserve. But to do this correctly, it's a collaboration. It's not just my folks. And the reason being is sometimes we've got to go through lower levels to get to higher levels. But to go through lower levels to get to higher levels, I have to have the cooperation. Paige and I have to work together because those may not be otherwise. She mentioned the DA crisis, or not the DA crisis, I'm sorry, defense attorney crisis and things like that. We have to find a way to prosecute and hold these folks accountable so that we can work through them to get to higher resources. The other side of it is absolutely data driven. We've got an analyst right now and a member of one of the TTLs from Paige's office that are specifically looking at data, identifying those folks that we want to actually go after, track down, find, hold accountable. And these are not necessarily your folks that I'm saying that we're figuring out how to divert or do something else. These are the folks that we want to send to prison. These are the folks that need to go fill our prison beds, and they need a timeout from our society because they are causing havoc and wreaking havoc. And so we are working on that team, but that team is in the what I would call early stages because we have an analyst, and the analyst is from my office specifically right now identifying those, and I don't want to use this term, but I'm going to use it, targets. And then we want to be able to get that information, not just to special teams, but to patrol, because patrol right now is continually, very rarely do I read a log entry now where we're not taking a gun off the street during the night and not taking multiple guns off the street. So your patrol teams are absolutely doing their jobs, but we need to continue to give them help so that they're not just chasing a problem, we're chasing the root of that problem. And that's getting to those specific folks that we need to target and get off the streets. I'm probably over my 15 minutes, so I'm going to end on a happy and a good note. And then I will let Mr. Representative Sir talk here. But on a good note, one of the things we've added, so we added Otis. And if I was going to bring one document today, I should have brought a picture of Otis.
So Otis could have brought.
Well, I could have just brought Otis, but Otis is a 110-pound bloodhound. Otis has won in the SAR world. We've seen Our SAR contacts this year have probably almost doubled on missing persons. I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but what Otis is allowing us to do, and this is on the local side of SAR, meaning you may have saw a press release last night that involved a elderly woman that walked away by Jefferson. Otis is right now 5 for 5 on his fines. And so it is allowing us to, some of these folks that wouldn't otherwise, you can devote all the resources in the world. It has nothing to do with the olfactory sense of Otis. And Otis can walk on a track. And if you ever get the opportunity to come out, and I know we do it in our Citizen Academy, you got to watch this dog's nose because he actually goes from footprint to footprint. So the Malinois, they're great for other things, not good for finding people like Otis can. So really a great addition. We've got Otis. I know Salem has the same thing. And so this is also helping us on low-level crimes and low-level crimes that are still a public nuisance affecting livability. We can actually use Otis to track people because Otis won't bite them at the end. And so it's a little bit different scenario, but a lot of uses for Otis and a great resource that we've added into the community.
We have such dynamic and separate topics. Let's do the Q&A for our DA and Sheriff. Yes.
Kind of a two-part question for both Paige and Nick, if you will. What were the challenges? I was maybe not real familiar with it. What were the challenges? You kept talking about the challenges facing the DA and prosecuting some of this low level that turns high levels. What is that challenge that we have?
Yeah. So some of it is just straight up resources. So anybody watched Dateline, 48 Hours? Like we have so much violent crime that takes the bulk of my 30 lawyers, right? We're talking about DV, assault 4 cases, domestic violence, talking about child sex abuse, we're talking about homicides, unlawful use of a weapon, which is individuals with pointing guns at each other, ballot measure 11 assaults. Those take the bulk of our resources. And I'm not going to turn a blind eye to those. Like I'm not going to not file a murder or an assault 4. A trespass, unfortunately, is a Class C misdemeanor and is going to fall to the bottom of our prioritization. My husband always says, he's a police officer. My husband always says, everything is important, but some things are more important than others. And when I have to focus on the worst of the worst. So those trespasses and criminal mischief in the 3rd degree, sort of the nuisance criminal mischief, those are going to fall to the bottom. The other thing that, and the sheriff alluded to this too, that goes into those challenges is those people right now are not even going to get a lawyer. So if I file that, it's going to sit on our logs and it's going to sit congesting the court system for the next 6 months to a year while we wait for them to get a court-appointed attorney.
Marion County,
They also won't go to jail based on not just beds, but based on the law. There's also a very clear Senate Bill 48, which has told us what we can and cannot put in jail. Do you want to answer that?
Actually,
that would be mine.
I think the
you're
representative is actually going to talk about that, so we can
a little bit about that too. But yes, not all of that goes to jail. So there's a lot of resource challenges along the way. Do you want to answer?
Yeah, the only thing I'll throw out there on top of that, and this is a misconception. So I don't choose who decides. I don't choose who stays in my jail. I have zero control over who stays in my jail. The presiding judge and the judges have some ability into that, but I follow Senate Bill 48, Category 1, 2, and 3. Category 3s stay. Category 2s and Category 1s are mandatory. They're released. And so, and I will leave that because I know Representative Mannix is actually going to talk about that. But that is one misconception, not only in the community, it's a misconception in law enforcement. There are many agencies that think that I am kicking their people out when they're bringing them to jail, and I'm not kicking anyone out. I have very specific procedures that I have to follow.
That's what they're telling us, is that the idiot are using the prosecute.
Yes.
You're refusing the house.
That's just not accurate. And let me add this. I have so much empathy for the officer that's on the street that has to respond to that call and disappoint you, right? He has to say that nothing's going to happen here. And so it's a lot easier, frankly, for an officer on the street to say, oh, there's not enough room at the jail, or the DA isn't going to do anything. That's an easy answer to sort of manage the issue on the street. It's also just a misconception when you're a patrol officer of the system as a whole, and this, right? He's trying to solve or she's trying to solve a problem in the moment. I have to work and we have to work within a much broader system. And so I don't fault the officer for saying that, but it's inaccurate. It's not a correct answer. And frankly, they shouldn't be saying that to you because it's just not right.
Sam?
Question for Sheriff, how are the high level criminals identified and what differentiates like level 1, 2, 3? What does that look like?
You're talking about category 1, category 2, and category 3. So there was a committee that came together through the legislature to make those decisions on category 1, category 2, and category 3. And they basically took all the crimes in the ORS and then they put them in there. So a lot of your category 3, you are seeing persons crimes, things like that. So it's inherently made my jail a lot more dangerous. The offenders that are currently in the jail, we used to have a lot of PCSs, other things like that. Generally, if you're in jail now, you're in jail for violent crime. That's why you're there, or the misuse of the jail system with the whole mental health piece and that, but that's a separate subject. To clarify one point, and then I'll go back to category 1, 2, and 3, just to give you an idea. So my daily population right now in the jail is right around 400. I have 470 beds currently available, and my population is at 400. I am more than happy to utilize 470 beds in my jail, but I have to meet the category 1, category 2, and I have to meet category 3. The only other way that you get into jail would be that if we put a public safety override on you. So if we have a lower level crime, but we can articulate why this person should not be out in public right now because they're an immediate danger in public, then the officer or my deputy can write that up, and we will then override them based on the presiding judge has allowed us to have these overrides. But the overrides are a short-term solution to a long-term problem, because all that does is get you in jail until you see a judge. And then the judge makes the decision as to the next course of action or where you go. It's not up to me anymore. So I have some flexibility in that the overrides, and we will not turn down the overrides. I have the capacity to hold the overrides. So if people are overriding, they can stay for a few days, but then the judge makes the decision about whether they stay or go.
Last question for this group. Lyle.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll tee that up pretty good for you.
It's creating.
Yeah, so it's not the Department of Justice, it's the Public Defense Commission. So the Oregon Public Defense Commission, OPDC, is a commission of individuals appointed by the governor who made the determination as to the maximum caseload the defense attorneys can handle. So that really did create across the state issues. It's primarily concentrated in about 6 counties. We're one of those, what they consider a crisis county. In Marion County, Polk County has a mild issue, I think. I think they actually have less of an issue than we do. But that is what created it. We have a new executive director of the Oregon Public Defense Commission. He's actually the former executive director of the CJC, for all of those people that love an acronym. That's Criminal Justice Commission. He's actually doing a much better job. I'll just say it. He's using his resources that he has much more effectively. I think that's why we're seeing our numbers in Marion County go down. We used to be over 1,000 people without a lawyer in Marion County. We're down under 300 right now. If you heard me, you would have knocked me over with a feather 10 years ago if you said there's 300 people in Marion County without a lawyer. That was unheard of, but that number is so low now compared to where I was about a year ago. So it's amazing. Correct. So yes. It is being addressed at the OPDC level. It is a state problem. It is contracts between the state and the actual folks who provide the service. So that is being addressed. I think we are seeing some movement on that. I am hopeful again as to the tree we are planting and where we are going. I think we're going to be better within a couple of years for sure statewide. I think within Marion County, we're doing some other specialty dockets that will help us eliminate that in Marion County within the next year, I think.
Thank you both.
I got one thing, Tom, and I want to use it just to tee up the representative and go back to talking about the categories. So for instance, and I just told you things that stay, assaulting a public safety officer is category 2. So if you assault a public safety officer, I cannot hold you in jail.
Unbelievable.
That's how bad these categories are right now. Go.
Okay. That ticks me off.
Well,
Let's,
I was using this really because I know where Rep Mannix is going, and so I was giving him.
So we are gonna now switch gears to Representative Kevin Mannix. Kevin is gonna share a little bit about his 2 initiatives he's bringing forward, which have been alluded to, and he keyed up last month. And also, Kevin, if you could, just a little insight into your personal thoughts on the emergency session and what occurred. You have 10 minutes, and then I want to allow 5 minutes for Q&A, Kevin. So if you wouldn't mind starting.
So many issues, so little time. I want to take you back to 1994. Imagine a system where the guideline sentences for first-degree rape were 22 months. That is, a judge could only impose a 22-month sentence for first-degree rape, and you would be eligible for parole or probation, even in that time. That's where we were in 1994. And what had happened in 1991 and 1993, I got more bills through the legislature than any member of the House or Senate, but I couldn't get a minute of hearings on changing the sentencing guidelines. So what did I do? I went to the voters. Yes, I'm the author of Measure 11, mandatory minimum prison sentences for violent crime, which is still in effect for adults today. And what is the mandatory minimum prison sentence for first-degree rape? 100 months. 100 months, no early release, no ifs, ands, or buts, no parole, no probation, 100 months. And law enforcement saw that and realized that if they could get the evidence, prosecute and convict people for a range of violent crimes, they actually would go to prison and serve time. And we pulled them out of circulation. And for the next 10 years, Oregon led the nation in the rate of reduction of violent crime because we took bad people who did bad things off the streets. Now, after 10 years, some of them finish serving their time and they go back out. And in 2010, hearing from prosecutors, there's some really bad people who do it again. On your second offense for one of the worst of the Measure 11 violent crimes, we passed a ballot measure in 2010, and I was the author of that said, okay, this time it's a mandatory minimum of 25 years. And 15 to 20 really bad characters every year are sent away for that. That part of the system works, okay? But there's so much more. And the problem is that while we started dedicating resources to all kinds of things as a state government, we were not dedicating resources enough to law enforcement. The district attorney's salary is paid by the state, but the rest of the district attorney's office is funded by the county. The sheriff's office is funded by the county. We have this system where county government has to do the best it can, and the cities have the same situation. We've been devoting more and more resources to a variety of social programs and not devoting enough resources to public safety. Now, that's the beginning comment. We can change some substantive things. The civil commitment standards, we just changed them to make it easier to get a civil commitment. However, you get a civil commitment right now, and the state prison is, state hospital is full of people that are there being held to be evaluated and treated because they've been charged with a criminal offense and they say they cannot assist in their defense. So we've plugged up the system there, and a civil commitment, where are we going to put people and give them treatment? Oh, there's some centers being developed. What I'm saying is you have to have a staged response there. But in some areas, we can kick the door open. Measure 11 kicked door open on violent crime. And we need to kick the door open on catch and release. Senate Bill 48, I'm trying to use a diplomatic word, was an ill-advised piece of legislation passed during the COVID session of the legislature. I want to say quickly, before I came back in January 2023. This passed earlier. And it was all in the name of bail reform. Oh, we're having a national bail reform movement. We reformed the Oregon bail system in the 1980s. And what did that mean? We got rid of bail bondsmen and bounty hunters. We said that you post a certain amount to show up for trial. If you show up, you get it back. Under the bail system, you pay a bail bondsman $1,000 for your 10,000 bail. You show up, fine. He still has $1,000. He didn't have to lose $9,000. If you didn't show up, you sent a bounty hunter after you. We did away with that. But under the guise of that, nationally, a number of states pushed through get out of jail free cards for a wide range of criminals. And we did it in Oregon with Senate Bill 48. Hey, you've been arrested for auto theft, identity theft, mail theft, failure to register as a sex offender. A variety of 157 felonies are on the list now that have been put out, where the presumption is as soon as you are booked, you will be released, not by a judge, but by a release officer. And the release officer has that obligation. Those are the standards. And you know what that is? That is stupid. Not ill-advised, stupid. And it doesn't work. What we had traditionally in the old days, you would be arraigned in front of a circuit court judge. And we're going back to this with one of these ballot measures, IP 50. It says we're doing away with catch and release. If you are arrested for a felony or a Class A misdemeanor, you will be held until you are arraigned in front of a circuit court judge who will look at your record, look at the charges against you, look at the evidence, consider public safety, consider the safety of the victim, I should say alleged victim, and also whether or not you're likely to show up for trial. And we've reinstated the capability of judges to set bail, because in a lot of cases they can't set bail. So yes, this is the chance for the public to say, no, we're not doing that anymore, but there's more. You remember grants passed wanted to go after illegal campers, trespassers, and the like. And the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals came out with a decision saying that's unconstitutional, you can't do that. They went to the US Supreme Court and got that reversed. In the meantime, again, before I came back to the legislature, I say this because I wasn't there to fight the battle. The legislature implemented the Ninth Circuit standards as Oregon statute, which is still in place, meaning we've still restricted the capability of local government to deal with what I'll call street level miscreants. Yes, and some of them are homeless, some of them have mental illness issues, some of them have drug issues. But when they're trespassing or engaged in disorderly conduct, local government should be able to intervene. Well, IP 50 also says, by the way, local government can again do what it needs to do about this kind of street level crime. But there's more. We know that resources are limited. So what did we put into IP 50? The state will have to reimburse the county every month for the cost of incarceration as a result of this, because it's going to cost some money to hold people pending arraignment. We did further, we said pending trial, and people will say it's going to cost a lot of money. My answer, of course it is, but it's the right thing to do, and the state's going to have to pay for it because we do have limited financial resources at the county level. And I get excited about this because we're going to kick the door open, but there's more. What if there's a limitation of capacity in the county jail? And that's the case in many situations. This piece says, if the county tells the state we've hit 90% of our capacity, the state has to open some of its jail space. The Department of Corrections, which does have closed prisons, will have to provide that space to hold people until the county again is down to 90%. Why? Because we were listening to law enforcement, and this is a very dramatic change in the whole approach to law enforcement. So it's IP 50. You've all got the QR code about the website. I have to stop myself from talking any more about that.
You got 1 minute.
The other one sells itself, killing the death tax. IP 51. I've gotten some reforms to the estate tax, especially for family-owned farms, woodlands, and ranches. I realized we hit the glass ceiling last session. After 3 sessions, I realized nothing more. We're not going to reform it. There's only 12 states left in the nation that still have death taxes. We're one of them, and we have the worst one. And we're going to call it a death tax because people start saying, oh, it's for millionaires. You start figuring out the value of homes and cars and retirement funds and life insurance. A lot of people are going to be subjected to a death tax where the rate is 10 to 16%. This initiative repeals the death tax. It also says there will be no inheritance taxes. Death taxes, you've got estate taxes paid by the estate. we don't have inheritance taxes, which you pay when you receive from an estate. We forbid that. We kill the death tax, and we also say there can't be any local taxes, because next thing you know, Wayne County or Multnomah County will pass some inheritance tax or something. No, we preempt that. It's a clean break from this whole attitude that you've paid your taxes all your life, and by the way, we're going to tax you when you die. So IP 51 ends the death tax. Both of these are in the ballot phase. And yes, there's another QR code in front of you to check the website, and I'll stop there.
Kevin, front page of Statesman Journal, Salem man gets 180 full days. Salem man gets 180 days in jail for rape, sex abuse of 3 minors.
I don't know how that could happen unless if he was charged under Measure 11, that would not happen.
I do not believe those are Measure 11 offenses.
Being as a minor.
25-year-old Salem man was sentenced on August 28th for 180 days in jail and 5 years of probation after pleading guilty to raping and sexually abusing 3 minors.
Well, if it was true rape, it couldn't be that. So, and sadly, that may be how the media has presented it. I don't know the case. I will tell you though, that as we deal with this whole business of eliminating catch and release, we're creating resources where we can be more aggressive. And by the way, this public defense crisis, this is because the Public Defense Services Commission tried to set work rules for defense attorneys. If the DAs did that, we'd only be prosecuting a half the cases they're doing now. Oh no, you can't handle that many cases. It was a ludicrous limitation that needs to go away. And guess who's doing the best job of public defense? It's actually the private sector consortia of attorneys who do it under contract. They're carrying much higher caseload levels and doing a better job than, I hate to put this way, the government hired attorneys or the Public Defense Council consortia that are actually nonprofits. And so there needs to be more reform about that. We need to force the system to work.
To follow up on your question though, I realize you probably can't answer that today, Paige, whoever, but I'd like to know, I mean, a guy rapes somebody, gets 180 days. Kevin, to your point, if that's misleading by the media, that's important for us to know as well.
Yeah. I don't believe those were Measure 11 cases. So I don't think they fall into that category where you're talking about presumptive 100 funds. So I think that I don't believe they were Measure 11 offenses. So because of that, there is a range of options available both to negotiate a case like that and to a judge sentencing. So I don't know the details of that one, and I can we can maybe find out more about that. But yes, yeah, absolutely.
It's 2 months per underage victim.
Yeah, it says that he posed himself as an underage male to attract younger girls when in fact he's even worse.
Yeah.
It's pretty sickening and very challenging. Kevin, for both of your fees, will obviously commit state dollars to, in one case, the death tax, remove dollars the state has depended on for years, and in the other case, have requirements for the state to provide funding into the various counties. What will be the state of Oregon's reaction and the legislature's reaction of how we then pay for this in light of the fact we can't get quorum enough to pass a transportation package?
Well, the transportation package increased taxes. The issue there. Getting rid of the death tax actually helps the economy because you have so many successful people leaving the state now as they look towards retirement. They're no longer there. They no longer pay Oregon resident income taxes. They don't spend money in their community. They don't support community organizations. Oh, they may come back for 5 months of the year, but they spend 6 or 7 months in Nevada. California doesn't even have an estate tax. So you can be somewhere else. You can be in exile and come back. And I don't blame them for doing it because they're facing an extraordinary death tax here in Oregon. Changing that does help boost regular revenue. It also changes the mindset about what we're doing with taxation. It says we're not taxing the heck out of everybody all the time. We're trying to be smart about how we use the taxes. Now, IP 50 says we're going to start using more of our tax dollars for law enforcement, for public safety. which is the most important component of what we do, and it's going to force a redirection. Measure 11 did the same thing. There were histrionics. Oh, it's terrible. It's going to cost so much. You know what I said? Yeah, it's going to cost a lot of money. We have to redirect our resources where it belongs. So I think that we're seeing the same thing here. And I do think the dynamics are, I'm trying to kick the door open on changing public policy. And I think the voters of the state can direct us in that move. By the way, the polling on the killing the death tax is favorable. Favorable. Now, we have to make sure people are still aware of those issues. But back to that, yes, it may reduce revenues. I think will enhance the economy and eventually enhance economic revenues that lead to regular tax dollars coming in.
Last question for Representative Mannix. Okay. Kevin, thank you for your work on this, and please keep us posted. And obviously our organization will, as you start to build momentum, I assume you would want an official position from our organization.
I would welcome endorsements from chambers of commerce in this chamber of commerce. That will be a great help. And we're already trying to start building that massive support.
So you would actually like a position from us earlier than, okay. So as an advocacy leadership team, we will take on that discussion and then bring that to our board of directors with a formal position statement for their consideration. I'd like to add 40% of our board of directors is in this room right now. Thank you for the 10 of you here. That's absolutely impressive. We're now going to shift gears, and John Hawkins has been a very sage voice in tax policy, in public and private accounting in our community for many, many years. And John is going to give us an overview of the changes in the federal tax code and how it will be affecting businesses and individuals who are here, right here in Oregon. John, thank you for joining us this morning.
Welcome. Just to tie in a little bit with Kevin, I tell a lot of my clients, don't die in Oregon. Don't die in Oregon. And a number of them do move out. I am on the Revenue Forecast Advisors Committee with the state economist, and exodus of high income individuals was a topic at our last meeting. And some of the data suggests it's not so much a lot of people moving out, they're not moving in. If you have the choice of setting up your business in Portland or Vancouver, people are choosing Vancouver. They're not coming to Oregon. So I think it is an impact on our economy. So, and I got to testify with Kevin on the natural resource exclusion with the legislature. And so we did help family farmers with this estate tax. All right, so I'll get back onto my course here. Does this thing work? Yes. So nothing gets blood going. I call my taxes in the morning, right? So July 4th, President Trump signed HR 1, which has been dubbed the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. And what it essentially did is it took the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that was passed in his first administration back in 2018 and made most of that permanent. Now, I would just say for the last 25 years as a CPA, I've been working with tax laws that have an expiration date in the future. I don't know what the future is going to look like. So for the first time in a long time, we have some tax legislation that should be permanent. Now, until the next time Congress gets together, they can change it again. But I think someone said death and taxes are two things that are certain, but at least death doesn't get worse every time the Congress meets. But in addition to making the Tax Cut and Jobs Act permanent, it also added some new provisions, and many of those new provisions are temporary. So I'm getting to where I can't, there we go. All right. So one of the big things was the tax rate structure we have for individuals and corporations. It made those permanent. And it actually, the brackets where you change from a different one rate from like 12% to 22%, the income thresholds where those brackets change is adjusted for inflation. It added an extra year of inflation adjustment. So those took a little bit bigger jump next year than what they were projected to. But we essentially keep the same tax rates as what we've had with a 10, 12, 22, up to a 37% rate that kicks in at about $700,000 of income for a married couple. Capital gains rates stay the same. Low-income individuals have a zero tax rate for capital gains. For most people, it's 15%. For high income individuals, capital gains can go up to 20%. Just mention Oregon makes no distinction for capital gains. It's 9%, or if you're a higher income individual, 9.9%, regardless of what kind of income it is. Whoops, did I do it? Okay, didn't do it. Talk, and I've got like 10 minutes to talk about a number of things. I could do 8 hours on this topic. One of the things that did get to stay is we have this qualified business income deduction we have for small businesses, particularly folks that have a business that's a S corp or a partnership that passes through to your individual return, or say you own some rentals individually, or you're a small business that's a sole proprietor. You get to take the net income you have from that business, and we have this made up out of air deduction of 20% of whatever your net profit was. That continues. There were some discussions about being more limited in some earlier drafts of the bill, but it stayed essentially the same as it was before, except that for certain types of incomes like doctors, lawyers, accountants, what we called specified service trader businesses, that deduction phased out over certain income levels. They bumped up those income levels. So you still get to deduct these even at higher incomes. Now, one of the things that got a lot of press during the campaign was the no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. And those are included in this bill. Now, that only applies for the years 2025 through 2028, which happens to coincide the years that Trump is in office as president. So during his administration, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. Not many people in this room probably earn tips or overtime, but you own a business that may have people that work for you that get overtime or tips. And so for tips, there's a deduction of $20,000 that you can take to eliminate that tip income. The tip income is still subject to payroll taxes. So it's still subject to, state and local as well as federal payroll taxes. With the overtime, say you got somebody who makes $20 an hour and they work the weekend, they get time and a half. So they get, did I say 20? Let's say 30. Say $30 an hour. They work the weekend and they get paid $45 an hour. It's just that extra $15 per hour that gets eliminated. It's not the whole overtime. It's that half, that time and a half that gets allowed as a deduction. And the limits on this are kind of half of what they are for the tip. Now, what's going to happen is that if you own a business and you have employees that this might apply to, the IRS has announced they're going to give us a new W-2 form. So you need to track this throughout this year. Make sure your payroll software is tracking this so that when you get to January, you can properly complete W-2s for your employees. Okay. Again, for a Southern boy, I'm trying to talk fast. Bonus depreciation. So this has come and gone over the years many times. It's now we have 100% bonus depreciation that is permanent. What happened is under the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, we have 100% bonus depreciation. That means if I buy a $100,000 piece of equipment, I can write off the full $100,000 first year. I don't have to write it off over 5 or 7 or 15 years. I can write it all off in 1 year. I have a choice. I can choose not to do it, but I have the option to write it all off. We were set to phase down from 100% to lower percentages of depreciation. In 23, it went to 80%, then 60. In 2025, it was 40%. You could write off 40% of the cost of a piece of equipment. What this does is it takes it back up to 100% for equipment you buy after January 19th. Now, what happened on January 20th? Somebody got inaugurated, didn't they? So makes it a little tricky. I was meeting with someone yesterday. They bought some equipment January 1st. It's not eligible for the 100% bonus depreciation. So now it's not when you buy it, it's when you place it in service and start using it. So maybe we can play with that a little bit.
Leave it on the lot. Sorry.
Exactly. Leave it parked in the driveway, whatever. So anyway, we have this bonus depreciation. We've also had another provision, what we call 179, where you get the expense equipment. The limits on that have been increased substantially as well. So it is more generous to businesses that buy equipment and buy some other, in their business. Qualified production property is something new. And it's again, I'm just scraping the surface here with some of these things. If you manufacture things, you produce things, you can build a building, kind of build your factory, and you can write off 100% of the cost of that facility in year one. Now, there's some very strict rules. And some of this you got to watch and see how it plays out with some of the IRS guidance. But you use it as an integral part of your qualified production activity. I didn't get into what a qualified production activity is. Got to be in the U.S., can't be outside the U.S. Original use began with you as the taxpayer. The construction began after, again, January 19, and it's completed before January of 39. So it gives us a fairly generous 14-year period there. And you can elect to deduct the full cost of that facility. So just keep that in mind. We also, several businesses have a research and development cost that they might have. I know that we have some food processors as clients, and they experiment with different ways of doing their production and what products they can sell. I talk with my hand. I know she's good way. But prior to, that was under the Tax Cut Jobs Act. And when we got to 2022, instead of being able to deduct those expenses all in 1 year, we had to amortize them over a 15-year period of time. Well, this comes back and reinstates the ability to deduct all of those research and development costs in the year that you incur them. And for small businesses, which are defined as a business with gross receipts less than 31 million, a lot of folks in this room, you can go back to 2022 and expense those on your 2025 tax return. You can kind of catch up on those expenses you didn't get to deduct those earlier years. The IRS last Friday just issued guidance on how to do that. Kind of wade through it, but just beware that, and I would say that in some of our clients, things that qualify for the research and development, they don't really recognize all the time what that is. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Oregon. Oregon has a rolling reconnect. We are tied to the definition of federal taxable income. There was a bill to disconnect last year. It died in the Senate Revenue Committee. So we still have a rolling reconnect. So all these federal changes apply to your Oregon return as well. They did a revenue forecast was announced last Wednesday, and it kind of depends on what you read. It's roughly the impacts of some of the things I talked about this morning. Some of the other things like the cap on state and local taxes being raised to 40,000 instead of being low at 10,000. A number of these things, they are projecting that they're going to impact this biennium by $600 million for personal income tax returns, $300 million for corporate tax returns. I'm just finished a year as being chair of the Oregon Society of CPAs. I was at the legislature testifying on a number of tax bills these last couple of years, and I'm concerned about our rolling reconnect. It really concerns me. I don't think they'll do it now, and if they do it in the short session, I don't think then bills are not law. Tax bills don't have an emergency provision, so it won't be law until 90 days after the end of session, which would be the middle of May. People have already filed their tax returns, but I'm concerned about in 2027, the long session, what's going to happen. Kevin, protect us. Okay, so I think that wraps up. Have you got people got questions?
I'd love to have, yes, please, John, thank you.
For instance, why?
Yes, there's been a rule we've had for a while that tenant improvements were eligible for bonus depreciation. So bonus depreciation coming back at 100%. allows his improvements to be 100% deducted in the year they're made.
It's only short term or long term.
Long term, have to be, you have to hold it for year to day. Year to day. But if you sell something you own for year to day, it gets long-term capital gain treatment. And I have a number of elderly clients that don't have much income, and it's zero tax rate. So anyway, anything else?
Questions?
These are my clients. Well, the legislature is talking a lot about losing all this money. First of all, they did set aside for consumer treaty. This is what I wish people would be talking about. And also, 800 to 900 billion is going back into the pocket stage. They will be used in our economy because Oregon is reconnected. They are getting that benefit. And I hope that Representative Mannix and his party, and I know they will continue to talk about that the other side of it, these are the dollars coming back to, individuals and business owners who here's able.
It's a very valid impact. Jonathan?
Question for you. So as it stands, we're probably one of the lowest tax environments in US history, right? Highest tax bracket is 36%, I believe.
Yeah, 37, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We're in the lowest tax environment right now, right? Yet we have a very high debt, where we owe as a country, I think $37 trillion now.
Yeah.
Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid are set not enough money for those. So as a CPA, do you foresee this to just really be temporary? Because once everything changes, it seems like something's gonna blow up in our country, right?
We need to address our debt, and that is a battle now within Congress, how to best address it. Either, if you're having a budget crisis at home, you either go out and get a second job, get more revenue, or you cut back your expenses. So I think there's a difference of opinion there. How do we reduce the debt? I mean, do we cut back on our spending, or do we cut back, or do we try to increase revenue by taxing more? And I'm like Kevin, I've what comments he made that when you take money out of people's pockets, that's less money they're spending in the economy. And I just feel like that fuels the economy, helps the economy grow, and can increase the tax revenue if you have a bigger pool of money you're taxing. So there's a philosophical difference there. I'm not going to get in the middle of that this morning, I guess.
Appreciate, John, your perspectives. And I know during the session, you also gave us an update. So John, I always appreciate having you on our panel and your expertise. We're going to end our series of little snippets on key issues going on in our community. A commercial air service update by a gentleman who's really worn a lot of the weight of this. And Brent DeHart has been a champion for commercial air service. People on the outside quickly go, well, Brent makes all this money selling fuel to airlines.
Yeah.
I will tell you the exact truth about $80 per flight is Brent's net. And so this is not a windfall for Brent in any means or capacity. Brent is a champion for accessibility in and out of our community. And that accessibility brought $32 million into this community in one fiscal year. That is very powerful for this to have that enough development. So Brent, why don't you paint the picture of where we sit today, where we can possibly go tomorrow, and the political realities that we're facing with Salem City Council.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks to the chamber for dedicating some time to the topic. We'll start with some good news, shall we? Even though Bello left, let's start with some good news. What their service brought to us. We now have a terminal that has been upgraded to modern standards, which is sorely needed. And most of that, by the way, was paid for by urban renewal dollars, not general fund dollars, which is a common misperception. We have a TSA approved upgrades. and equipment. We have ground surface equipment, so we can handle any aircraft really that comes into Salem, including redirects from Portland and redirects from Eugene and charters like we handled this summer when Eugene had a problem and the USC basketball team came in the 737, those kinds of things that we can now do. We have higher level security at the airport, which was sorely needed. We have trained firefighters and police officers to deal with aviation activity. Our top revenue, a hotel tax, is through the roof and beyond expectations. And we like to assign some of that credit to having visitors come fly into Salem and not get a hotel in Portland. And most importantly, we now have data that shows that our region is a viable commercial market. We did not have that without Avelo. And so now we can say to policymakers and to other airlines, this is the experience. This is our willingness to buy tickets in the Mid-Valley and avoid PDX. So that's invaluable in recruiting at the next carrier and for people to understand, especially people who hold the purse strings in public policy. Dick with Nell's in the room. So I would say, where's our return on investment? And what's remarkable, that was $1.9 million into terminal improvements, right? In those 2 years, because we had air service, the FAA increased the amount the Salem Airport has earned by $2.3 million in just 2 years of service. That $1 million plus per year would have happened every single year that we have a minimum number of employments. That's a pretty good return right there. They improve the terminal and they get more money back than they put into it. In addition to that, as Tom was alluding to, using state of Oregon guidelines, it brought new visitors coming from Burbank, coming from Vegas. And to me, $1.75 million of local spending per month. So there's people trying to poke holes in that number, even though we drew it from the guidelines from the state and Marion County. Say they're off by 40%. It's still $1 million of visitor spending in Marion County that we didn't have before. It's a pretty darn good return on investment. In addition, we had an $850,000 congressional allocation. And a $540,000 state allocation. We're looking at $3.7 million staying right here in the center of the Willamette Valley because of this. It's so jaw-dropping that this is just a drop in the bucket compared to the potential. It's so jaw-dropping in terms of return on investment and economic development. It is the question for city council really should be, how can you not make more of this happen? Really quickly, why did Avelo leave? Avelo left, one, they were not strong in a cash position. Their profitability on the East Coast networks, it was 2.3 times what it is in the West Coast network. So as much as they tried to make a base out of Burbank, California work, they were making more money on the East Coast. So they took the 2 aircraft that were on the West Coast and they just reallocated their resource so that they could be more profitable with a limited number of aircraft they had. It had nothing to do with Salem. We could have sold every seat on every flight and we still would have lost service. That's really important for you guys to walk out in the community and understand. Had nothing to do with Salem. Do not allow people to say, it failed in Salem. Salem and the region, we did what we were supposed to do. We supported the service. Avelo failed us, right? So you got an airline who made some corporate decisions and they failed us. So that's really unfortunate because it's hard to overcome a public perception and these days people get stuck in my perception is going to be the truth and no matter what data you show me. So reality, Burbank did extremely well in passenger count. Las Vegas did pretty well, not enough of you are gamblers apparently. So we were, over 90% full during the summer, overall mid-80 Burbank, 2/3 to 3/4 and plus full in Las Vegas. Irony there is Las Vegas had the highest passenger count the month that Avelo canceled service. Like it had never been better and they canceled service. So that's a corporate decision. It's beyond our control, beyond anything that Salem could have done. So you help me out there if you can help dissuade public opinion to the otherwise. Because there's a lot of misinformation and mischaracterizations of the situation. So falsehoods, it didn't work. It did work. It worked. Velo left, that doesn't mean it didn't work while they were here. We're not big enough. We're absolutely big enough. Our MSA is 425,000 people. Our area is 760,000 people. Misperception number 3, the city gave Avelo millions. The city of Salem gave Avelo exactly $0. Okay? Please correct that when you're having barbecues and having lunches with people. The city of Salem gave Avelo exactly $0. They did waive landing fees for 2 years, but you can call that subsidized, I guess. But they didn't give Avelo millions of dollars. All right, what's next? That's what you want to know. And we would like to have it back. We want our service back. We feel like we've established its viability. There's a limited number of airlines, and we got to find one that has planes, that flies where we want to fly, that is in growth mode. It's willing to take a risk on Salem. And we think we have that partner that would start at least a Burbank flight for next summer. If they're going to require an incentive fund, similar to the incentive fund that we used for Avelo. That one was funded by personal and corporate contributions for a local match plus a federal grant. We don't have time for a federal grant. We might be in 2 years before we could maybe get one. I mean, in perfect world, we get one next spring. We just don't think it's likely that we're going to win on our first try. So we need an incentive fund to attract this particular airline. And we're going to have to fund it from a variety of sources. So we're seeking to put something on the table. The airline has not committed. If you raise X dollars, we will come in March. So you may have heard Avelo exited Breeze Airways, which is very similar in terms of its age and being a low-cost carrier, picked up 4 of the 9 routes that they were flying out of Burbank. Or you also hear people saying they picked up everybody but Salem, which is also just not true. Of those 4, all 4 had a check in hand. All 4 of those airports had incentive funds at the ready. Some of them had rolling funds that they use for these kind of opportunistic things. So they went where there were incentive funds, where there was a vacancy, they're going to start in March. Alaska Airlines didn't like that much. So Alaska is going to come on top of those and fly the exact same routes and start them 6 months earlier. So it's all this intrigue in the aviation industry. I know you're all thinking this, and the answer is no, Alaska will not come to Salem. So as much as we would like them to, they basically say that we're not even going to have the conversation. We need to go out and get another low-cost carrier, continue to do well, grow it from 1 destination to 5 destinations, and that is our best route to get our eventual goal, especially in the business community, is major carrier to major hub. And I asked about that. Given our new data, can we now attract a regional to fly us on a Delta flight? I mean, or a United flight or an American flight, San Francisco, Denver, Salt Lake City. And the answer is the regional carriers are getting those incentive funds at $4 to $5 million just to talk about a new route, which is not viable in our market, this place. Unless any of you have the winning Powerball ticket this week, in which case I would like to talk to you. So a minute on economic development. It's very frustrating to me as a now former member of the board at SEDCOR. Frankly, I just don't think they're doing their job in this arena. We have the only economic development. It appears we have the only economic development organization in the nation that doesn't think commercial air service is economic development. Even though you can search in the internet and you can find articles that literally say that commercial air service development is economic development. Raleigh-Durham is 3 times our size. Raleigh-Durham MSA, they estimated an $8 billion impact. $8 billion because they have commercial air service. Eugene is right down the highway. Their own data, which they commissioned last year, says it's a $1.6 billion impact to Eugene per year. And what we need from our leadership to get the recruitment money is some vision. And what will this look like in 10 years? Not will we be whole this year. So we have some counselors that get it. We get some counselors that are listening. They're in a tough spot because it's very difficult to find it anywhere what we need except general fund dollars. So we are looking at tourism money from Travel Salem. We're looking at economic development money from Marion County. We're looking and Polk County. Sorry you missed that meeting, Commissioner. And And the city has to be involved because frankly, the governor's office and both counties are waiting to see what the city of Salem does. And if city of Salem doesn't say it's a commitment and we're going to commit dollars, no one else will. Not the nobody will. And we're going to take our marbles and go home, and we probably will not see it in a generation. So that's my fear. Anyway, one quick example, and so I don't run out of time. Let's talk about Provo, Utah. Provo, Utah, unbelievable parallels. They're a little bigger than we are, but in 2011, they didn't have any service and they did terminal improvements. They rolled the dice and spent some money on the terminal. Sound familiar? They got Frontier to come. Frontier came, they stayed 20 months and then they left. And that is exactly where we are today, right? They came 20 months and our airline left. Then Allegiant said, well, we'll come. And they started, and then Breeze came and American Airlines come. So in a 10-year span, they went from our empty terminal, it didn't work here, to 3 carriers and 17 destinations for Provo, Utah. Guess how far away they are from Salt Lake City? They're 46 miles. Guess how far away we are from downtown Portland? 46 miles. So the parallels are unbelievable. I wish people could see the vision. What do we want for our state capital in Oregon? What do we want for our region? Are we going to be a powerhouse region with powerhouse economic development and grow and attract professionals and have a quality of life and attract more visitors to the Mid-Valley and the wine tasting and everything we have to offer? Or are we going to halt progress? We're going to throw away the millions that have been invested and say, oh, it didn't work. Let's throw that away and walk away and never talk about it again, which I fear that there are some voices at the city council that will say that. So, but Provo, Utah is a great example. We used to use San Luis Obispo is a great example as well. I met the airport manager at Tallahassee, Florida, state capital, smaller than we are. They're about another hour distant from a large metropolitan area than we are Portland. But they're an international. They have so many carriers. They're doing cargo. They're doing what do you call it? Incoming freight, customs. Thank you, customs. They're doing all of this in Tallahassee, and we're not doing any of it. So that's where we are right now. There's a limited number of carriers to come and approach. We're approaching all of them. In case you have any ideas, yes, we've talked to them. And I would like to see, frankly, Allegiant say, well, we're going to swing all of our lift out of Portland to Salem because it's so much cheaper to operate. It is that beautiful $2.2 billion terminal that we have at PDX comes at a cost to the airlines. And in a certain way, the airlines are pricing, or the PDX is pricing itself out of a low-cost carrier market. So we could save Frontier, Allegiant, JetBlue, Spirit, bankruptcy, Breeze, any of these carriers, we could save them $20 to $25 a passenger by operating out of Salem efficiently rather than PDX. There's a whole bunch of fun facts. One of my favorites is 1 out of 5 Avelo flyers came from Portland Metro. 1 out of 5. We're drawing, and I told you 700 or 670,000 people. That doesn't even include Wilsonville, folks. 1 out of 5 Avelo flyers came from Portland Metro. We're drawing from the coast and the canyon and everywhere else. Really interesting data that we've achieved. The other interesting thing, especially for this city council, is my crew, and I don't have hard data. I asked my 3 ladies that checked in every passenger, how many of those are Hispanic? All 3 said 40%. 40%. Councilor Jose Gonzalez was exactly right. He was on city council and said, having a carrier that goes to Los Angeles is important to my population. We have lower than average household incomes, and we all have relatives in Southern California, and it'll be a big benefit to my population, meaning greater Hispanic population in the region. Huge benefit. So we also don't want people to think airline service is a game for the wealthy. It absolutely increases mobility and transportation center, and it solidifies a lot of economic development in the Mid-Valley.
Past President, if you had one call to action from this group here at their advocacy, how can we best help this situation?
That is a great question. I wish you told me you were going to ask me that. I think combating the misinformation is huge. It doesn't work here. It absolutely works here. It worked when Delta was here. Helping the city understand that spending money now all comes back. It's coming back to your community. I can't draw a line for the city manager that this tot funds are going to end up in the general fund, right? The taxations and the visitor spending, all this results immediately in general fund. But we've proven that the money's coming back in the community and economic development and a return on investment. So find the money, help the city council understand that they need to find the money. We're talking about millions and millions if they can find $300,000 a year. I mean, it's kind of dumbfounding when you look at $1.6 billion of impact in Eugene, and we don't want any piece of that. We want to throw away a $4 to $5 million investment. And because we can't find $300,000, that's insanity. That is people that want to stick the Mid-Valley exactly where they are and not grow. So help convince the city council that it's a small amount of money for the return.
So there's our call to action. We're at 8:30. Kevin?
30 seconds.
Kevin, you've never done anything in.
Here is a tease. Maybe the state should create a Salem Airport Authority and take over the Salem Airport.
That is certainly a tease, and we'd like to know more.
I think we have a city council problem. When you see a court, when you see a quote from two county city councils says that corporate greed at its finest on the actions of the airport. I mean, that's ridiculous. And you know, John, you were just talking about the new taxes that Oregon was really bright for like Indiana, who just gave $1.5 billion to a local business here in Oregon. That's, I mean,
Yeah.
we got a problem where businesses are not respected.
Yeah.
They're 100% respected in this organization. All of you, I want to thank you for your time today. For those who are tracking the Chariots discussion, I want to be extremely clear. Regardless of what is said about us in print and by their board of directors, we are going to be incredibly respectful in this conversation with Chariots as they seek to evaluate imposing a employer paid payroll tax. But we cannot stand and not be involved. Starting next Monday, the 8th, you have an opportunity to come share your point of view. They are going to be featurette stations, to my understanding. You notice that these meetings are 3.5, 4 hours long. Nobody is expecting you to be there. It is a pop-in, share your opinions, and then you can depart. But if we do not show up in mass and share the opinion of the business community, absolutely shame on us. And so this cannot be simply the Salem Chamber, who is also partnered with Sedcor, who is also partnered with the Kaiser Chamber, who is also partnered with the West Salem Business Association in our opposition to this, or at the very least, taking this to a vote of the people. Those organizations are made up of real people giving real testimony and sharing their real personalities and points of view. Please do not expect that Jameson, Gideon, and I are going to be the only voice at all those meetings. We need you present to share your voice, and we need your friends and peers present to share this voice. To extract $39 million annually from this business community is nearly $400 million in 10 years, directly out of business owners' pockets. What may have been agreeable in 2017 under the pressure of Peter Courtney at the height of his power is not agreeable today. We've had a global pandemic. We've had businesses in Oregon literally chased out of our state, and very little respect for the economic stability that businesses bring. Your voice must be heard, and I need you to participate in this process. Do not sit on your hands, please. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we look forward to seeing everybody next Monday at our forum kickoff series, where we will bring a very interesting speaker into Oregon, who's going to share what municipalities can do, i.e. your cities, can do to improve housing stock, not just low-income housing, but housing for the entire needs of a community. This is going to be a fantastic presentation. We certainly hope you're going to be there, and thank you to Hagen Hamilton Insurance Solutions for being our sponsor all season long. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned. Thank you, speakers, for joining us.